Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Jun-sok, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Young, thank you for coming on today.
Happy to be here.
Well, stocks in New York closed last Friday at an all-time high. The Dow above 30,000 now, the S&P and the Nasdaq also at new highs. What's the story in the global markets?
Okay, well, Dow has risen 12.9% so far this month. This is the best monthly performance since January of 1987. S&P 500 and Nasdaq rose 11.3% and 11.9% respectively in November. So this is their biggest monthly advance since April of this year. But the futures are down early over the weekend, though now it's somewhat settled. But the reasons that futures were down early over the weekend was that apparently the Trump administration is weighing blacklisting Chinese chipmaker SMIC as well as Chinese national offshore oil and gas producer CNOOC. Now this move will limit their access to American investors and escalate tensions with China just before President-elect Joe Biden is scheduled to take over. So that market nervousness made itself felt during the beginning part of the weekend, but it seems to be settled down somewhat now, though we'll have to see on market opening how much that will have actually on the market. The European market, they're holding more or less stable, with DAX and CAC rising slightly over the last week, while FTSE fell slightly during the week. Asia, it's a bit mixed as usual. Nikkei and Hang Seng, they rose early in the week, but they fell on Friday. Shanghai, it's rising continually. Korea, Kospi had an interesting day today. It rose last week. In fact, until last week, Kospi was doing fairly well. It rose 16% during November, but it fell minus 1.6% today, mostly sell-off by foreign investors. They sold off about 2.4 trillion won worth of stocks. That's the largest sell-off since records began in 1999, but the drop was limited because individual investors bought the stocks sold by foreigners. Now, the market analysts are saying that it's probably profit-taking by foreigners. And Nasdaq, it rose last week. It rose today.
Right. Well, we have new data from Statistics Korea mentioned briefly before showing that consumption was down in October for the first time in 3 months. Investment was also down. Lots of data here. Tell us a bit more about that. And what stands out to you, Professor?
Okay, well, it's giving very mixed signals. If you compare it to last month, production didn't rise at all. It was 0%, and this is attributed to fall in exports. So manufacturing was down minus 1.3% again compared to last month. And semiconductors were down 9.5% compared to last month, but it is up 13.1% compared to last year. Now, automobiles, again, no change compared to last month, minus 5.8% compared to last year. So production-wise, things are somewhat mixed. Services are up 1.2%, mostly restaurants, traveling, going to gyms because of the end of distancing. But because we are now increasing distancing again, whether production of services will go up in the next month or November is up to question. Consumption down 0.9% compared to the month before, that is September. But it's not all bad news. Consumer durables, mostly automobiles, it rose by 2.0% compared to September. And consumer semi-durables, which are clothing and shoes, they rose by 7.2%. What fell was consumer non-durables, such as food. And that is presumably because people are not staying at home. They're going out to eat, which also accounts for the increases in services that we mentioned earlier. The future business cycle indicator was up by 0.4 points. The current business cycle indicator was up by 0.5 points. So people seem to be optimistic, or at least they were optimistic at the end of last month, but investment is still bad. Business investment was down 3.3% in October compared to September, and construction was down 0.1% compared to September.
Well, now it's the start of a new week, of course, Professor. What's on your radar in the days ahead? Any data?
Okay, well, Wednesday, it's the Korean Consumer Price Index. Last month, the increase in Consumer Price Index inflation was only about 0.1%. So there were concerns not only about a recession, but a possible deflation. I think they were over-worried about going into deflation, but this month will show how much of a trend it will be. The international balance of payments is also due on Friday. The current account is probably positive because we had a merchandise trade surplus during October. And then for the export figures, U.S. wages and unemployment figures for France and Germany for November are out this week. The EU unemployment for October is also out this week, and Purchasing Managers Index, which is an early indicator of whether our economy is going to recession or going into recovery for U.S. and various European countries, are also due this week.
Got it. We'll check back in later in the week then. Professor, thanks so much for sharing your insights today.
Thank you.